Amina Okafor learned to answer to a lot of versions of herself. At the doctor's office, people turned Amina into Amina. At the grocery store, it became Amy. At school, it was usually the same thing every morning. A pause, a squint at the paper, and then the wrong name said with confidence, as if confidence made it correct. But in room 214, it wasn't a mistake anymore. It was a routine. Amina, black, 15, quiet in public but sharp in her own head, sat in the second row of Honours English, notebook open, pen ready, trying to stay small in the ways students learned to do when adults made them feel like a burden. The teacher, Ms. Denise Hart, stood at the front with a fresh attendance sheet and an expression that suggested she didn't like being slowed down by details. "Am I na Okafor?" Ms. Hart said loudly. Amina raised her hand. "It's Amina, and Okafor." Ms. Hart didn't apologize. She smiled thinly, the kind of smile that meant close enough. "Right," she said, drawing the word out. Amina. The class laughed softly, not everyone, just enough for Amina's face to heat up. "It's Amina," Amina repeated, still polite. Ms. Hart waved her hand. "I said it. We're moving on." Amina lowered her hand and stared at her notebook, pretending the letters mattered more than her pulse. The next day, it happened again. And the next. Each time, Amina corrected her. Each time, Ms. Hart responded like Amina was interrupting the natural order of the world. One morning, Ms. Hart didn't even look up from the sheet. "Amelia Okafor," she called. Amina froze. That wasn't even close. "Ms. Hart," she said carefully, "my name is Amina." Ms. Hart finally looked up, eyebrows lifted. "That's what I said." "No," Amina replied, voice shaking now. "You didn't." Ms. Hart's face hardened. "Are we really doing this again?" A few students shifted uncomfortably. One boy in the back snickered. Amina could feel the familiar pressure. If she kept correcting, she became difficult. If she stayed quiet, she disappeared. "I just want you to say my name," Amina said. "Key." Hart sighed dramatically. "Your name is on the sheet the way the system prints it. If it's wrong, take it up with the office." Amina stared at her. "It's not wrong in the system." Ms. Hart laughed, a short sound. "Oh, you work in the system now?" Amina didn't answer. She opened her Chromebook instead, because she did know something Ms. Hart didn't. The school used a digital attendance platform. Every student had an ID profile with their preferred name and phonetic pronunciation, set by the registrar and visible to teachers if they bothered to click. Amina clicked into the student portal. Profile. Name, Amina Okafor. Pronunciation, U-mi na Okafor. She stared at it for a second, then took a screenshot. After class, she walked to the attendance office. Her hands were still trembling, but her voice stayed steady. "I need to confirm what my name shows in the attendance system," she told the registrar. The registrar, a kind older woman named Mrs. Alvarez, looked it up. "It's correct," she said immediately. "Amina Okafor, with pronunciation notes." Amina swallowed. "Can you print it?" Mrs. Alvarez blinked. "Print what?" "The profile page," Amina said. "With the pronunciation." Mrs. Alvarez studied her face for a moment and didn't ask questions she didn't need. She clicked a few keys, printed a page, and handed it over. "There you go," she said softly. "Everything's correct." Amina thanked her and walked out holding the paper like it was heavier than it should have been, because now she had proof of something simple. The system knew her name, so if Ms. Hart kept correcting it wrong, it wasn't because she couldn't. It was because she wouldn't. And the next time attendance happened, Amina wasn't going to argue with Ms. Hart's confidence. She was going to let the attendance system speak. Amina didn't sleep well that night. She kept replaying Ms. Hart's voice in her head. "Are we really doing this again?" As if asking for her name to be said correctly was some kind of childish obsession. She stared at the printed profile page on her desk, the letters sharp and official, the pronunciation spelled out clearly. The paper should have made her feel safe. Instead, it made her feel angry in a quiet, contained way that was new to her. Because it wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was disrespect with a shrug. In the morning, Amina slid the paper into a clear folder and tucked it into her backpack. She also saved the screenshot to a cloud drive and emailed it to herself, just in case the paper got lost. She hated that she had to think like that, but she'd watched enough adults treat proof like something optional to know she needed backups. Honours English started at 9:10. Amina walked into the room 214 with her shoulders squared, not loudly confident, just prepared. She took her usual seat and opened her notebook like everything was normal. Around her, students chatted about a quiz in math, a game after school, a rumour about a substitute teacher. No one was thinking about how someone's name could become a daily humiliation. Ms. Hart swept in 2 minutes late with her coffee cup and her attendance tablet. "All right," she said briskly, "let's do attendance." Amina's heart started pounding before her name even came up. She hated that her body reacted like this. A name shouldn't feel like a cliff. Ms. Hart began calling. A few students answered. A few were absent. The rhythm built. Then she reached the O's. She glanced down and smirked slightly, as if the next line was an annoyance. "Amelia." "Oh, Coffer," she said, louder than necessary. Amina raised her hand. "Here, it's Amina." Ms. Hart rolled her eyes. "Yes, yes." Amina didn't lower her hand. "It's not yes, yes. It's my name." A quiet hush spread across the room. Someone stopped tapping a pencil. Someone else coughed into their sleeve. Amina could feel every eye on her, waiting to see if she would back down. Ms. Hart's face tightened. "Amina," she said with forced emphasis, as if she was doing Amina a favour. "Happy?" Amina's voice stayed calm. "Not if you keep changing it." Ms. Hart set the tablet down slightly harder than needed. "You're holding up class." Amina reached into her backpack and pulled out the printed page. She stood up, walked forward, and placed it on the front desk without slamming it, just setting it down like a fact. "That's my attendance profile," Amina said. "From the registrar, with pronunciation." Ms. Hart stared at the paper. For a second, she didn't touch it, like it might burn her fingers. Then she lifted it, scanned the top line, and scoffed. "So now we're printing things." Amina's voice remained steady, even though her hands shook. "You said it was wrong in the system." "It's not." Ms. Hart's eyes narrowed. "What exactly are you trying to do here?" Amina swallowed. "I'm trying to be called by my name." Ms. Hart's mouth tightened into a thin line. "Fine, sit down." Amina returned to her seat, heart racing. Ms. Hart set the paper face down on her desk and picked up the tablet again, moving quickly as if speed could erase the moment. But Amina had seen something important. Ms. Hart didn't look confused by the pronunciation notes. She looked irritated that they existed. Halfway through class, Ms. Hart assigned a reading passage and told students to annotate. Then she walked to her computer and began typing. Amina watched her out of the corner of her eye, trying to focus on the text while wondering what Ms. Hart was doing. Emails, notes, a complaint. At 10:03, Amina's school email notification popped up. From Attendance Office. Subject, Name Verification. Amina's stomach flipped. She clicked. Your student profile name is verified as Amina Okafor. Pronunciation guide is active and visible in the attendance system. If any staff member experiences issues viewing this, please notify the attendance office. Amina stared at the message, then at the timestamp. They had emailed her during class, which meant Ms. Hart had reached out to the office trying to prove she was right, and the system had answered instead. Amina slowly lifted her eyes to the front of the room. Ms. Hart had frozen mid-step near her desk, phone in her hand, staring at her own screen with an expression that wasn't anger yet, but surprise. The kind you get when you expect the system to back you up and it does the opposite. For the first time in weeks, Amina didn't feel small. She didn't have to argue. The attendance system had spoken, clearly and officially, in writing, and it wasn't speaking for Ms. Hart. The rest of the period felt different, like the air had been rearranged. Ms. Hart moved faster than usual, flipping pages, tapping her pen against the desk, trying to keep the class flowing as if nothing had happened. But Amina could feel the shift in the room. Students weren't just listening to the lesson anymore, they were watching the teacher, watching how she handled being corrected by a system she'd claimed was wrong. Amina kept her eyes on the book, forcing herself to underline sentences and write margin notes even though her heart was still beating too hard. She didn't want to look up and meet Ms. Hart's gaze. She didn't want to be pulled into another back and forth. The email from the attendance office was proof enough. Anything else would be theatre. Still, Ms. Hart found her. About 10 minutes before the bell, she walked down the aisle with a stack of worksheets and placed one on each desk. When she reached Amina, she paused just a fraction longer than she did for everyone else. "After class," Ms. Hart said quietly, so only Amina could hear. Amina's stomach tightened. "Yes, ma'am," she replied, keeping her tone neutral. When the bell rang, chairs scraped and students poured out. A couple of girls glanced at Amina as they passed. One looked sympathetic, one looked impressed, like Amina had done something daring. A boy in a hoodie murmured, "Nice," under his breath as he walked by. Amina didn't react. She gathered her things slowly and waited until the room emptied. Ms. Hart stood at the front, arms crossed, face controlled. When the last student left, she closed the door. The click sounded too final. Amina gripped her backpack strap. "You wanted to see me?" Ms. Hart exhaled, forcing a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Yes, I wanted to address what happened." Amina didn't speak. She waited. Ms. Hart picked up the printed profile page from her desk, the one Amina had placed there, and tapped it lightly with her finger. "You embarrassed me in front of the class." Amina's throat tightened, but she kept her voice steady. "I didn't mean to embarrass you. I meant to correct my name." Ms. Hart's eyes narrowed. "You could have handled it privately." "I tried," Amina said. "Every day." Ms. Hart looked away briefly, then back. "Amina," she said, pronouncing it correctly this time, crisp and deliberate, like she wanted credit for it. "You need to understand that teachers are under pressure. Attendance is fast. We have a lot to manage." Amina nodded once. "And I have one name." Ms. Hart's jaw tightened. "You're being disrespectful." Amina's hands shook slightly, but she didn't lower her gaze. "Disrespect is calling me the wrong name and acting like I'm the problem for correcting it." Ms. Hart's cheeks flushed. "I did not call you the wrong name on purpose." Amina didn't argue feelings. She pointed to facts. "But you did it repeatedly, and when I corrected you, you rolled your eyes. You told the class we had to move on. You said if it was wrong, it was the system." Ms. Hart's expression hardened. "So what do you want exactly? An apology?" Amina paused. She thought about what an apology from Ms. Hart would even mean. Words said because she had to, not because she understood. She thought about how many times she'd accepted half apologies just to make things stop. "I want you to say my name right," Amina said. "Every time, and I want you to stop acting like it's a joke." Ms. Hart stared at her. For a moment, Amina wondered if she would double down, if she would turn this into a lecture about sensitivity, about kids these days, about respect for authority. It would have been easy. Adults did it all the time. Instead, Ms. Hart's shoulders dropped slightly. "I received an email from attendance," she said, voice stiff. "It says the pronunciation guide is active." Amina nodded. "Yes." Ms. Hart's mouth tightened. "Fine, I'll follow it." Amina didn't smile. "Thank you." Ms. Hart tilted her head. "But you need to understand something, Amina. This isn't the only classroom you'll ever be in. People are going to mispronounce things. You can't stop everything every time." Amina felt the familiar pressure again. the push to accept small harm as normal because it made other people comfortable. She took a breath. I didn't stop everything. I stopped you, because you weren't trying. Ms. Hart flinched slightly at the directness. Amina continued, quietly but firmly. If someone makes a mistake once, I correct them. If they keep doing it, it's not a mistake anymore. Ms. Hart looked at the paper in her hands as if it might offer her a better argument. It didn't. Amina adjusted her backpack. May I go? Ms. Hart hesitated, then nodded. Yes. Amina walked out of the classroom into the hallway, where the noise of the school returned. Lockers slamming, shoes squeaking, voices echoing. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt drained. But underneath the exhaustion was something solid. For weeks she had been forced to defend her own identity like it was optional. Now the system had confirmed it in writing. Now the teacher could no longer hide behind the sheet. And the most important part wasn't that Ms. Hart agreed, it was that she was cornered by the truth. That afternoon, Amina went to the attendance office again, not to complain, not to escalate, but to make one more record. Mrs. Alvarez looked up when she entered. Everything okay? She asked. Amina nodded. Can you add a note that I requested staff use my pronunciation guide? Mrs. Alvarez's expression softened. Of course. She typed for a moment. Done. Amina exhaled slowly, because she understood something now. Sometimes respect didn't come from asking nicely. Sometimes it came from building a trail so clear that even the people who wanted to ignore you couldn't pretend they didn't see you.